I think most of them know him as the wide zone guru, but he came today to talk about pass protection, which I'm super pumped about. Was at Grayson, won a state championship at Grayson. Now he's offensive coordinator at North Forsyth. So, Coach Timmerman, it's yours.
I appreciate you guys coming in and listening to a little ball. So, like Coach said, this is 10 years coaching. I started off at Northside Warner Robins, which is right in the middle of the state of Georgia. I've been really fortunate to be at some really good programs and being around some really good coaches. I was at Grayson the last 4 years. We had some really good players, won a state championship there. I was the O-line coach there for 4 years. I started off as a 9th grade O-line coach and have kind of worked my way up. This was my first year as offensive coordinator, and I was still doing the tight end, so don't worry, I didn't totally transition away from offensive line. I'm not coaching quarterbacks or anything. I couldn't tell you how to do any of that crap. But all I know is you got to be really, really good up front to win any football games. So I do the tight ends, which means I still get to be involved with the offensive line and everything. And I'm still doing our offensive line training right now. I work with our kids mostly 3 to 4 days a week after school. It's mostly our young kids. One of the things that's been different at North is just we have a lot more kids playing multiple sports, which is not a bad thing. It's just different. But it's been fortunate, and it's been in a good way because I've been able to work with a lot of our younger kids. So a lot of what you'll see today is the stuff that I'm starting to take them through now. Kind of just a quick breakdown of our offensive line training season or in the off season. Kind of this cycle that I've developed over the last 4 years is pretty much in the month of February. We won't really do anything that looks football related or offensive line related. We'll spend a lot of time in the weight room. I got together with our weight training coach, our strength coach at Grayson, and basically said, hey, look, I want to put together a offensive line specific training regimen for our guys that I can do after school. That's not necessarily like heavy weights or anything. They're doing all that stuff in weight training period or whatever. But in the month of February, that's what we do. It's mostly like isometric core stuff, all right, unilateral work, training their adductors, teaching them how to do proper hip hinge, a lot of the same stuff that Coach mentioned in the session earlier. And we do that for the whole month of February. And then in the month of March, I'll teach them how to get in a stance. And yes, I'll take 3 weeks to work on teaching them how to get in a stance because it's that important. Stance is a skill, and we'll work a lot of different things on that. And then kind of now, towards the end of March, getting into April, we'll start actually working some football movements, some pass protection, stuff like that. We spend most of our time in this offseason working on our pass protection stuff just because, I don't know, I think there's only so much you can get out of run blocking stuff without putting actual pads on. So kind of getting into things, right? So as far as our stance goes, I'm an OLP guy, so that's how I teach things. You know, I don't necessarily tell the kids like you have to be in this specific stance, right? Your toes don't have to be on your heels and your feet have to be hip width apart because your 6'5" kid's going to have a different stance than your 5'11" kid. I try to give them some parameters to work within, you know, and then they find it within there. We can talk more about that stuff later if you want. The only thing really is I don't really tell them either that you have to be in a 2-point stance or 3-point stance. I don't really care. As long as you can get your job done. We've done the whole offensive line in 2-point stance in 2021, and we were the number 3 rushing team in the state of Georgia, running mostly wide zone. So to me, I don't think it matters if you're in 2-point or 3-point stance, as long as you coach the other things correctly. The only real non-negotiable, I will say, is that if your hand's going to go down, it's your outside hand, and your outside foot is back. So that's kind of the main thing. We start at 2-foot splits, but obviously you can adjust depending on scheme or maybe assignment specific, right? If you're an air raid team, you may move out to 3 to 4 feet. All right. But kind of being a wide zone based team, we started at 2 feet and we would kind of adjust from there. All right. Depth, we're back off the ball, right? Helmets breaking the center's hips, or, you know, some people say like if you're in a 3-point stance, the guard's hands breaking his shoelaces, whatever. Kind of the same deal with all that stuff, right? Teaching gaps and all that stuff, that's a big part of it. I'm not going to go through a ton of that stuff. I will talk about this, though, because we are a drive-catch team when it comes to pass protection, okay? We don't use the word kick slide. If you do, that's great. But I believe in being intentional with our words, and we're going to drive catch. If you're not familiar with any of the OLP stuff, right, it talks about 8 angles, LaCharles Bentley, right, of driving force through the ground, okay? driving force through the ground. If you want to go in a certain direction, okay, with any type of force or acceleration, all right, physics tells us you have to apply an equal amount of force in the opposite direction. It just doesn't work that way, or it doesn't work without doing that, okay? So we're a big drive catch team. I'll kind of get into what that means as we go through, but you'll hear me use that term. You'll hear me talk about force through the ground, right? Whole cleats in the grass through the midfoot. Again, very similar to what Coach talked about previously, okay? I'm just kind of running through this first little bit of stuff, so we'll get into this stuff, okay? So how do we start to train that, okay? So one of the biggest things that teams or people that even if they do drive catch stuff, a lot of times they don't teach the catch part enough. They don't take enough time to teach the catch part, which to me is just as important. And so for us, what we talk about, and I've got video to go with this, but what we talk about or what we mean with a catch foot, right, is I'm in staggered stance, okay? I'm playing right tackle right here. So my inside foot is up, okay? My outside foot is back. Again, for some guys, it's a little bit tighter. For some guys, they may have more stagger. It's up to them, whatever they're comfortable with. And again, that's why we spend those 3 to 4 weeks working on stance. So our guys can find that stance that's comfortable with them, okay? But whatever that is for them, okay, that outside leg is going to be our catch leg, right? So if I'm taking a pass set, all right, just some basic drive catch if you're not familiar. If I'm taking a basic pass set, all right, on a 45-degree angle, my force has to go down through the ground and away at that angle, okay? It's no different than if you wanted to jump straight up in the air, the force you're going to apply is what direction? Straight down. That's just how physics work, okay? And so in other words, now this is my drive leg. This becomes my catch leg. That's what allows me to stop my momentum, stop a bull rush. Now I'll be able to change directions, whatever it is. So a basic set is there. Everything's intentional with force. All right, everything's intentional with force. So this is our catch leg, right? We want to pound the ground with the inside part of our foot. And so in order to train that, okay, we use a couple of examples. I talk about splashing water, splashing a puddle of water. And so like if I've got a buddy standing next to me and there's a puddle of water between us, okay, if my foot goes straight down in the puddle of water, where's the water going to go? Straight up. I'm going to get wet. Well, if I want to get my buddy wet and splash water on him and not me, I'm going to go at an angle, okay, with the inside part of my foot. The other kind of cue that we use sometimes is that there's a nail, okay, in your heel. There's a nail in your foot, and you've got to nail that into the ground, okay? So once we kind of work that, all right, and I'm going to take you through all this, and then I'll show you video of it and go through it again. Once we kind of get the catch part done, the other thing I'll do with that too is I'll have them just kind of stand here, all right, like with one foot up in the air, and I'll have a buddy push them from the other side. And that's just all we're doing. It's very easy. It's very simple. And that's all they're doing, right? So, Coach, can you come here? So if I'm standing here, Coach is just going to give me a light push. And that's all we're doing. It's real simple. It's basic. Thank you. But we're just training them to understand, okay? And obviously, we'll do it from both sides. I'm a big believer, like at this time of the year, especially for high school guys, train them both ways, okay? Train them both ways, right? Unless you just got like that dude who's like going to play that one spot. Train them both ways. Now, in the season, I don't like to move them at all if I don't have to. We obviously know how all that goes in high school, though. But in the off season, I like to train them both sides, okay, constantly. So we'll rep everything to the right, everything to the left. But then once the season starts, I like to be settled, and I don't like them switching sides very much, if at all, okay? So once we kind of have that basic concept of, okay, here's how I catch myself, all right, now, how do we create that force, right? How do we drive? How do we move our body, okay? Well, again, it all goes back to force through the ground, okay? And so we'll start, okay, from a knee. We'll start from a knee, very similar to, again, what you saw Coach do, and I feel like I'm going to be saying that a lot, right, as we go through. But it's very similar, okay? But we'll go from a knee. This helps us to, again, we are not kicking and sliding, okay? Hopefully that doesn't offend anybody. But that's not what we do, okay? That was, if you ask the guys that I coached with at Grayson, that was a dirty word around me, all right? But we do not want to reach and then pull, okay? I want to drive and catch myself and stop, okay? I want to be in control of my movement, okay? So we'll work on that. We'll do it from a knee, okay? We'll go 1 set. We'll reset. We'll go 2 sets. We'll reset. We'll go 3 sets, okay? We'll do that from a ground. We'll do it from a med ball, okay? And then we'll go from a stance, okay? Once they've got the basic movement patterns down and they understand, all right, here's how I actually can make my body move through this whole force through the ground concept, then we'll start giving them some landmarks, right? Because your set's going to be different depending on who you're setting to. If I'm setting to a 4 technique, it's going to be a different set than if I'm setting to a wide 9. So my force, the amount of force and the direction I apply that force is therefore different. So once they kind of have the basic general concept down of how to move my body through applying force to the ground and also how to catch myself, now we'll start giving them landmarks, right? I'll just use 3 cones, okay? This cone's a tight 5. This cone's a little bit wider 5. This cone's a wide 9, right? And we'll give them those landmarks. All right, we'll do the same thing from a stance, okay? We're constantly checking their posture maintenance, okay? Again, I'll spend, probably the good portion of the month of March, which is what we've been doing, working on that posture. And what we want is every time we take a set, right? If we're saying that this is the most powerful position we can be in, right? That's what we're saying, is we're saying that's our stance. If this is the most powerful position that we can be in, then I should be in that position through the whole set. So every time and that's why I break it down, 1, 2, 3. It says every time they should maintain that same posture, right? It should never get out of that. And so we're constantly checking that. I've got different things that I'll show you that'll help them maintain that and give them feedback on if their posture is changing or not, okay? And then the other big thing, okay, about pass protection, okay, and this applies to, in my opinion, whatever offense you run or however you teach your pass set, okay, but especially on drop back stuff, like get away from the line of scrimmage. Get away, all right? Space gives us time, okay? Space gives us time. We want to create that space, and that comes through force through the ground.
Real quick, while you're talking about stance, talk to me about your hip hinge. What are you telling them in regard to how much they want to hinge?
So I'll just take you through our whole stance progression. Okay. So the first thing, this is the stance progression that we go through, and we go through it over and over and over and over again. And I'll just tell them find their width. 6-foot guy's width is going to be different than the 5'11" guy's width. So I just tell them to find their width, and I'll get on the side and I'll push them, all right, and I'll lean on them, and they'll find it naturally. Just trust your kids to be athletes, right? They'll find that naturally, okay? Then I'll tell them to find their depth for power, right? So my width is where I find my stability. My depth is where I find my power. So again, I'll do the same thing. Once they've found their depth, a good little cheat technique is like just kind of get them standing there and then like kind of surprise them and like push them, like shove them in the chest a little bit. And what will they naturally do? Oh crap. That's probably your body telling you, hey, this is where I instinctually feel the most powerful. Now you may have to adjust a little bit, but you'd be surprised how often our bodies will just naturally self-correct. And so we find that position, okay? Then we'll turn our toe out, okay, about a 45-degree angle, okay, our outside foot. Okay, remember our outside foot is always the one that's staggered. We'll turn our toe out, okay? All right, well, coach, when I turn my toe out, what's that do to my hips? Turns them out. So the next part of the process is now I've got to close the door, okay? Close the door, get my hips back square, okay? You can tell them basically press their outside butt cheek forward, close the door, hip square, whatever coaching cue works for you. But at the end of the day, I want to get back square, okay? The last part, getting into the hinge, which you asked about, we roll our shoulders, okay? Hands on our thighs, arms stay straight, and we hinge. We hinge until our wrists come over our kneecaps, and that's where I want to be. Again, that'll be different for everybody. But this is where I want to be, okay? And so that's what we work on. And then once we get in that posture, once they find that, now I'll start doing all kind of crap to them. We'll put bands around their knees. and pull out, so they have to work their adductors, okay? I'll give them a med ball to hold, and I'll slap and push, pull the med ball. I'll give them a PVC pipe. I'll do a bunch of different stressors to help them understand how to hold that posture, right? Because especially for a lot of young guys, they don't know how to connect their upper body with their lower body with their core, right? And so that's a huge part of what we teach, of getting them to understand that this part and this part have to be connected with this, right? Just because we're offensive linemen doesn't mean we don't have abs, right? I always like to tell my kids, I have a six-pack, it's just in a cooler, okay? All right, but that's a big part of it. So that's a very long-winded answer to say, as far as the hip hinge, okay, that's what we teach. My arms stay straight, I hinge, and I spend a ton of time working on how to teach a hip hinge, because if you don't, the first thing they're going to do is just bend over. And again, that's not what we want. So we take proper time to teach how to hinge, right? My hips slide back as I hinge, and that's the posture I want to be in. That makes sense? Okay. So here's us, again, just working the catch, okay? All right. Of just understanding how to put our foot in the ground, right? We want to make contact with the inside part of my foot, okay? And that's all we're doing right there. And yes, it seems simple, but if you don't do the little stuff right, you can't do the more complex stuff. All right. So here's now kind of driving from a knee, all right? And what you'll start to notice with guys, okay, and you'll see it with Griff right here, okay, big Griff right here in the green. What's the first thing that moves? His shoulder, okay? He's trying to jerk himself up instead of applying force through the ground. So those are little things you just watch for, right? Those are little things you watch for. And especially your younger guys who are maybe not as strong in their single legs department, that's another thing they'll do too, okay? All right. So again, all we're doing here is we're working on driving from the ground, okay? The other thing too I should mention in our stance is when we're in that stance, my kickstand or my outside leg, that's where we want to see our 345s. 45-degree angle in the hips, 45-degree angle in the knee, 45-degree angle in the ankle. My post leg, my inside leg, that shin is perpendicular to the ground, straight up and down, okay? Again, if you do it a little bit differently, that's fine. This is what's worked for us, okay? And I got it all from the Charles Bentley. So that's just driving from the knee. Okay, again, you see him there. I'm telling him to roll his shoulders back. We don't want to be hunched over. Again, same thing, okay? So this is his sophomore year, okay? So he was a big old boy, and he hadn't quite yet grown into that big body. So you can see him lurching with that shoulder. Now you'll see a clip of him later, okay, in his junior year, and it's much smoother, okay? That's a credit to him, not me. He was going to be a D1 athlete whether I coached him or not. Okay, so here we go. All right, again, just working on coming up from a knee. I'm not concerned really about the angle or the depth or anything right now as far as a specific pass set. I just want him to learn how to apply force to the ground right here, okay? So you can see, okay, right here, I think these are pretty good. They still have good hip hinge, okay? I don't like him. He's too straight up, okay? Again, I teach maintain hip hinge all the way through, okay? In my opinion, if you do this to a defensive lineman, you're screwed. Because all those defensive linemen working their freaking indie drill is shock shit, okay? And so as soon as you start to give them all your chest, you're done, in my opinion, okay? All right, young Walt right here, you notice, okay? Boom. Not a bad set, but then he kind of has to catch himself, right? So that's all we're doing right here, is just learning the basic principle of force through the ground. All right, feet too wide. Feet are too wide. So again, we're looking for that posture maintenance the whole way through. That's a little better. Okay, so now we'll come from a med ball. All right. Med ball is probably easier, better for your younger kids, okay, who again may not be as strong. But again, that's all we're working. We're just applying force through the ground. And we're working on catch. All right, catch. And it's just as simple. All you want to do is just look nice and clean. then you can start to worry about like introducing angles and things of that sort. All right, so a few other drills that we do now to kind of continue with that process, right? We'll do the med ball on the ground, okay, which helps reinforce that proper posture and hip hinge, right? It gives them tangible feedback for am I rising up too high? We'll put the med ball in their hands, okay? All right, meaning I'm here, I'm holding it here, all right? This helps reinforce keeping the core tight and the upper body not lagging behind or jumping ahead, okay? And then med ball in the open palms, okay? So again, kind of three different things. One's here, the med ball's right in front of their outside toe, okay, their outside leg, big toe, and they're gonna roll it on the ground. Here, all right, my elbows are tight, okay? Screwed into my rib cage, okay? That's another big part we teach, is we want the elbows screwed in, so now my shoulders and hips are married together, okay? Once you get here, not a lot of success. But now, if I can get here, now my elbows are married up with my hips, okay? And that's where my power comes from. And then in the open palm, okay? And I'll kind of explain that one as we go through. So this is just rolling from the ground. And again, all that's doing is giving them tangible feedback of, am I coming up too high or not? And they're just going to roll it, okay? You can give them 1 set, 2 sets, 3 sets, whatever you want to do. I like to, especially early in the training process, have them go on my command for each one. Instead of just saying, all right, guys, go 3 sets. I'm going to say hit and you do 3. Well, hell, they may get to the second one and it's sloppy. Well, I guess that's what's going to mean. What that's going to mean? The third one's going to be sloppy. So I like to have them go on my command for each rep early in the training process so that we can reset if we need to, okay? I don't care how fast we can do 3 bad reps. I don't care. Okay, I want to see how well we can do our reps. So that's all we're doing right here. So they're going on my command for each one. And we're just rolling. All right. You can see it from the front. And it's giving him, again, tangible feedback for if the ball is getting away from him. Here it is going the other way. Okay. We'll do it with a post as well. Okay, we'll work a set, all right, to an outside rush. We'll work a post to an inside rush as well. Okay, we always want to keep our inside foot up. Okay, we never want to ever give away our inside foot. Okay, so again, same thing, just working a post, giving him feedback on his posture. Okay, so here it is in their palm. Right? Now, this is a great drill for if their upper body is not staying locked in through their core. Okay? A lot of times what you'll notice with young guys is one of two things. Either they will try to, like you saw in the video, try to jerk themselves, right? Or their lower body will move and then the upper body travels with it. Okay? This gives them feedback. Okay? That ball is just in their open palm. Okay? So if there's any type of lag or jerk, typically the med ball is going to fall out. So this gives them feedback on how to keep their core locked in. I'm big on giving them tools that gives them feedback. Okay? My goal is for them to be able to coach each other, for them to be able to tell me what they did wrong. I can tell them what they did wrong 1,000,000 times, but until they can tell me what they did wrong or what they did right, then it probably hasn't clicked for them. So that's all we're doing. And so as we go, if you're watching, like if you're the coach and you're watching from this angle, you want that med ball to stay right in front of that bicep. You can do it outside hand. You can do it inside hand. You can do it on an outside rush, posting to an inside rush. I do it all different ways, okay? But either way, we want the med ball to stay covering up that bicep, right? If he were to set, right? If he were to set and that med ball were to like cover up the ram on his hoodie, right? That tells me what? His upper body's lagging behind. He's not got his core locked in, right? If the med ball is to come away and I'm able to see his arm, see his bicep, that tells me he's trying to jerk, right? And again, most of the time, the med ball will just fall out of their hands. Okay, now we'll have them hold it with both hands, right? Their pinkies are almost touching. Their thumbs are out, okay? Now they're being a little silly right here, all right? But the idea, again, in order to maintain our posture throughout our sets, okay, is they're going to take a set or two, okay, and now you as the coach or the players are basically going to come through on that last set, and you're going to give them some pressure, okay? And like I said, they're being kind of silly right here. This isn't how I would do it, but you can mix it up. I'll mix it up. I'll give them like hard, constant pressure for a good 2 to 3 seconds. I'll give them some hard slaps, okay? I'll fake them out and see if they lunge forward, right? All different kind of things, okay? I'll hit it from the sides. I'll hit it from the top, okay? Just don't hit it from the bottom because then I'll hit them in the chin, right? And now you got to explain to mama why their kid's got a chipped tooth, all right? But that's all we're doing. Again, keeping elbows screwed into the rib cage. They want to be like a freaking concrete statue right here. We don't want them moving at all. We want them locked in, okay? Locked in with that core. Again, we'll go all different angles and go from there, okay? Any questions on those 3 drills? That's just kind of a different progression we go to give them some feedback. What's up?
So after they've set, right? You said earlier about their inside foot perpendicular to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Right? After they sit, is there any leeway for that knee to get inside of that foot, or do you want it to stay perpendicular to the ground?
Yeah, so the knees always stay inside the ankle. But like as far as what I mean by perpendicular is I don't want my shins going this way. So I'm staying perpendicular, but my knee is staying inside my ankle. We always want to stay knees inside ankles. Always.
Have you found that there's a better size and or weight that's all you use?
So those are 6 pounds. I use as light as possible. Because again, I don't want the focus to be so much on the med ball. I don't want the focus to be, holy crap, I got to hold this heavy med ball. I just want it to be enough weight that it gives some feedback. So those are 6 pounds. Those are 6 or 8 pounds. They're the lightest ones I could find. All right. So that's my view on it, is I want it to be just enough there where they have some feedback, but it's not heavy enough where now their mind just turns into, holy crap, I got to hold this heavy med ball. If that makes sense. I'll send you the link. I'll show you the link of the exact ones I use. Okay. They're probably the best tool I've ever bought. I'll take med balls over a whole bunch of other stuff any day of the week. Okay. So now, right, we understand the basic drive catch principle, right, both for a outside rush and an inside rush. We understand now how to keep our posture maintained throughout our stance and our core locked in. So now we can actually start working versus some different rushes, okay? And versus different rushes, okay, we want to maintain a knee to crotch relationship, okay? Some guys say, my outside eye, his inside eye, or my outside foot, his, whatever maybe works for you. This is what we do. My knee through his crotch, okay? And then we want to go from there, okay? Now, the slight exception to that may be is if you're an interior guy and you've got just one of those big hoss of an interior defensive lineman, that may be a time where you may want to get nose to nose, okay, and be all on the defender, okay, be body on body. But most of the time, especially for tackles, we're teaching knee to crotch relationship, okay? So how do we work it? We just incorporate different cones as landmarks to start with, okay, and then we'll go from there, right? We incorporate, another thing you can do that I started doing is incorporate, you can use bungee cords or strings or PVC pipes as landmarks that show the angle of the rush, okay? Because again, he may be a wide 9 technique, but he may rush speed to power right at me right now. Or he may rush hard up the field. So we change up the alignment of the defender, and I'll change up the angle, okay, that the defender is going to take. So they work different sets, okay? And then we'll incorporate a live defender, okay? So couple of things, all right? If you start to notice, man, I've been trying to do this knee to crotch thing and my guy just keeps oversetting or he just keeps undersetting. Well, maybe for that specific player, then you do need to change the landmark, okay? All right? If they're constantly oversetting, right? If coach is a defender here and you've been coaching knee to crotch for the past 3 months and he still don't get it, okay, and he keeps oversetting, well, change it to knee to knee. All right? So he keeps overshooting his landmark every time. We'll give him a tighter landmark. Now, if he overshoots it, he's right where he needs to be. Okay? Or you got a player that undersets his landmark. I've been telling him knee to crotch, and every time he only ends up on the inside knee. We'll give him a wider landmark. Go knee to outside knee. And now, in theory, right, maybe he'll end up where he wants to be. So, right, it's the same thing we tell our players, okay? We want to have rules, okay? We want to have things to fall back on, but you can't be robots, okay? You can't say as a coach, well, I've coached him to do it this way, and I've told him to do it like this 1,000 times, and he still does it wrong. Well, it sounds like to me you've been telling him to do it wrong 1,000 times. Figure out a new way to tell him how to do it, okay? That's why they have us, okay? If the kids could do it themselves, they wouldn't need us, all right? So, again, just give them some different landmarks, okay? Just use cones, real simple, okay? Setting to the cone. And the other thing, too, is you'll notice as you watch some different guys, don't necessarily force them to be robotic in how they get there. Some guys, especially like some of your taller guys, are going to be more comfortable taking longer sets. It's okay. All right? Walt here, okay? Walt's the best offensive lineman I've ever coached, okay? He's 6'2" on a good day, okay? He was more comfortable with a little bit shorter sets. Okay, so give them those tools, okay? Give them those tools and then also teach them how to do it, right? So maybe say like, hey, I want you to take 3 sets right here, but I want you to go 2 short, 1 long, right? So what does that look like? It may look 1, 2, right? Give them different things to work, right? Don't just make them be robots. Give them different tools in their toolbox, okay, that they can use on Friday night, all right? So with our hands and stuff like that, okay, all right, where we hold our hands, okay, is anywhere between nipples and belly button, okay? Again, just give them some parameters, let them be ball players, okay? The only thing I tell them is we just want to be on different angles or different levels, okay? Because if I've got my hands here, all right, defensive lineman swats 1, he's got both. So we just want to be on different levels somewhere in here, okay? Typically, inside hand's higher than the outside hand, all right? Elbows screwed into the rib cage, all right? Our landmarks for our strike, okay? Interior guys may do 2-hand strikes more. I'm a big independent hand striker, big on independent hands, okay? Striking with our outside hand, okay? Your interior guys, again, especially if there's a bigger body on top of them, all right? 2-handed strike, all right? We want to be right down the chest, okay? Stop that bull rush. Again, if a guy's coming right down your chest, he's probably bullying you, all right? For our independent hands, we're outside hand to the outside pec. Outside hand to the outside pec. Kind of like Coach talked about earlier. Really want to emphasize elbows in, thumbs up and out. I talk about striking with the heel of your palm. I'm not smart enough to know what this part of your body's called. I call it the heel of your palm, all right? Heel of your palm, and that's where we want to strike, okay? The smaller the target you can give to, the better, right? Like, you know, if the team has a conference logo somewhere up there, right? Aim small, miss small, okay? Inside hand is going to go for the inside bicep, okay? Why do we go bicep for inside and pec for outside? Because most of the time, not all the time, most of the time if you're getting an inside rush, that's probably their secondary move, okay? So that means you're what? It means you're reacting, which means you're going to be late, okay? So we give a wider landmark so that if you are late and you get there, now you get there and you're on the pec, okay? Hopefully that makes sense, okay? All right, we want to strike. This is a great cue that I picked up from a guy who's a lot smarter than I am, okay? When you coach the strike, coach elbows through the wrists, okay? I want to take my elbow and strike it through my wrist. Elbow through my wrist, okay? Hands through the defender. Elbows through wrist, hands through the defender, okay? We want to make contact, all right? It's going to be different for everybody, okay? I talk about this one a lot with our kids is know your strike zone, okay? Again, you're going to have different size players, okay? Your kid with the 78-inch wingspan is going to have a different timing for his strike, okay, than the kid with the 68-inch wingspan, okay? So everybody's got to know their strike zone. It's different for everybody, okay? Biggest thing though, no matter what about any of that, you have to have a stable base. Okay? All right, the analogy I've heard before is like you don't want to shoot a cannon from a canoe. All right, I think we'd all kind of get that imagery in our head. That would not end well, right? Canoe's going to do what? It's going to tip over. So what that means is I want to strike as my catch foot, okay, whether that's my outside foot or my inside foot, as it's hitting the ground. Meaning I want to be there, okay? Because if not, if I'm here, all right, I don't know how many great athletes you guys have at offensive line, but I've not coached one yet, and I've coached 2 All-Americans that can pass block like this, okay? So we want to strike as that foot hits the ground. Same thing if I post. All right, I'm stable. I've got both feet in the ground, all right? We don't want to be completely locked out. If you're completely locked out, that means they're probably a little too far out of your strike range. And if I'm completely locked out, that means I got nothing left to give. I want to make a little bit of contact. I want to make contact with just a slight bend. So now I've got just a little bit to give him right there. Y'all ever seen like the 1-inch punch from Bruce Lee and stuff like that? It's kind of the same idea, okay? You can't do a 1-inch punch if your arm's already locked out. So we want to make contact with just a little bend so I can punch through them. Okay? Now, these aren't all great clips because this is very early in our training process, right? So right here, it's a little tight, okay? It's a little tight, okay? A little tight. And I slow it down, right? I just have the guy walk to him. Have the guy walk to him, time it up, okay? So they can feel their strike. Again, if I'm making contact like this, I'm late. If I'm making contact like this, I'm too early, okay? And so we've all got to just understand our strike zone, okay? And so, again, some of these may not be pretty. All right, see, here, right here, way too tight, right? There's no force coming through that punch, okay? There's no force coming through that punch, okay? And so and what you're seeing right here is, you can see them, they initially set, all right? Take a set, and then, now the defender's moving, so now I post and work my inside hand. So just giving them a little bit different as we go through, okay? The other part, like I mentioned with the 2 hands, okay, if you feel more comfortable, right, with a 2-handed strike, then so you can see kind of Walt doing it right here, right here. He's getting an inside rush, okay, and he's an interior offensive lineman. So as he gets an inside rush, he's getting 2 hands on right now. That's fine. That's fine, okay? I tell those interior guys, like, hey, if you got to use 2 hands, use 2 hands. Okay, but all it is just working timing. Okay, that's a little bit better, right? You can see, right, Griff right here. He's not tight in here, kind of like he was in that earlier rep, but he's also not making contact here. That's about what we want right in there. That's about what we want right in there. All right, now we're just working 2-hand. Okay, so I do work the 2-handed strike. Okay, especially for the interior guys. Okay, one thing too, I'll say big with your centers, spend some extra time with your centers on striking with their off-ball hand, right? Because most of the time, if they're a right-handed person, what hand are they going to snap with? Their right hand, okay? And I know if they're anything like me, I can't do anything with my left hand, okay? I don't know if y'all remember like the old like Rock Band video game where you had like 4 drums, you had to hit them. I'm so like right hand dominant, I took my right hand and I hit 3 drums and my left hand only hit the one over here. So train your kids, especially your centers, to get used to using that off-ball hand because that's going to save them, man. Center is so hard, right? Everybody talks about like offensive tackle, it's hard, blah, yeah, it is, okay? But this dude's playing with one arm for the first half second or second of the rep. So he's got to be a freaking stud. And if you don't coach that, then it's really hard for him to do. So I would encourage you to spend some extra time of getting them to snap and using that off-ball hand. All right, so some common mistakes, okay? You start to see that back foot kicking. Again, We're not a kick slide team. We're a drive catch team. We don't want to kick and pull ourselves because now all my momentum's going that way and I can't stop myself, not efficiently, okay? So the biggest thing for that is just check that their whole foot's in the ground. A lot of times you may see like kids like they've got their toe in the ground or their heels off the ground, right? Just go back to those earlier drills we talked about and just reinforce driving through the midfoot, continue to work from a knee, all right? You start to see your young kids too, especially like as they are in their set, that knee will flare out, okay? Again, that goes back to what we talked about. We always want to play knee inside ankle, okay? Reinforce squeezing their adductors, all right? We have a lot of different adductor work. I have a whole presentation on like the weight room side of things that we do in preparation for this. But we do a ton of adductor work on being able to keep their knees inside their ankles. Then we have the resistance bands just above the knee that we'll use as they set and stay in their stance. The upper body's lagging behind. Some of the stuff we talked about earlier, hips too high, right? Those different drills we talked about with the med ball can give them some tangible feedback on how to correct those things. Again, I want them to be able to tell me what they did right or wrong. All right, so some drills that we do, okay, once we now can do it on an individual basis, we'll start coming together, okay? This is just an eyes drill, okay, of just getting them to train their eyes to track different targets, right, of some type of twist or linebacker blitz, okay? That's why it's called eyes drill, okay, because we're really just working on training our eyes to track moving targets, change direction, maintain good posture throughout the drill, okay? That's all it is. And it doesn't have to be like this order at this all the time, just as long as they end up in 3 different spots. Okay, this is our basic mirror drill that, again, probably everybody in America does. But again, we want to maintain our posture and our hip hinge through the whole drill. Okay, and again, see, this is terrible. Okay, this is bad. He's just like hopping and sliding. We want to maintain that posture. Okay, we want to maintain that stance through the whole drill. Okay, a little bit better by Griff at the top. Still a little too much hopping. Again, if both feet are ever off the ground, we're in a losing position. Okay, so this is better. Okay, we've been going at this for like 45 minutes by this point, so they're starting to get a little silly. You know how kids are. But this is better, right? And this is where I'll clearly define from like, hey, you're a right guard, right? So your left foot should never go back. You should always keep your left foot up. Okay? If they want to go on an inside rush, make them run over that post leg. Don't ever give them that. Okay? So now we'll work a bump drill. Okay? This is just picking up a twist from a stationary perspective. Okay? Work it from, if you're a half slide team, work it with your man side and your slide side, right? So like, because to me, those two things are different, right? So like if this is the man side of the protection working a 3 and a 5, okay? They do need to set up, I teach a little more vertical, okay? Because especially in a known passing situation, you're playing an even man front team, 3 and a 5, what are you likely to get? Boom, boom, right? And that's, film study stuff or whatever. So we just work it from a stationary perspective, okay? When it comes to like picking up a twist like this, like my number one cue is go kill the penetrator. Like kill the penetrator, okay? If your guy loops, you have all the information. All this other guy knows he's getting some type of outside rush. If your guy loops, you have all the information. So as soon as your guy loops, okay, he's going away from the quarterback. I'm not a genius. That's not normal on passing situations, okay? Go find that penetrator and KO him. KO him so your teammate can get off on the looper. Okay, obviously we don't have pads on, so we can't necessarily do that right here. Okay, but again, we just do it from a stationary point, and then I think this is I don't know if it'll play, but once we do it from there, okay, we'll do what I call mirror bump. So now it's that same mirror drill. I'll give them a go. They'll start the mirror drill, and then I'll say go again, and then they'll twist. So it goes from the mirror drill to the bump, right? Because again, How often, all right, here you can see it right here. How often, right, are we just going to go straight from here to bumping it off? Not very, not if the defense is any good, okay? And we call it bump because we want to physically bump into each other, right? That's the physical cue, right, to tell the other guy to come off, all right? That's why we call it bump drill. You should bump into each other. All right, I think this is kind of the last thing on here, okay? This is the best thing that I started doing for our pass protection training in the off season. And you can do it in season if you want. I got this from the guys over at Velocity Football in Canton, Georgia. If you don't follow them on Twitter or have never been over there, they taught me all this stuff. Okay. I first saw like OLP stuff on the internet or whatever, and that's cool and all, but like I got to do it. And so like, I don't know, like 2016, 17, I drove up there and I was like, all right, I want you to take me through this stuff and teach me how to do it. And so that's how I learned. It's like I had them physically take me through and do it, and I did it myself. They're great. If you can drive over there or talk to them, they're awesome. They're way better coaches than I am. All right. So, but this is just a circuit we do. Okay. So basically it's 4 stages, like a ladder circuit. Okay. It's 4 stations or 4 drills just in a line. And so if you got more space, you can have 4 or 5 guys going at a time, depending on equipment. Okay. These are strike sticks from LaCharles Bentley and Offensive Line Performance. You don't have to have them. You can do whatever you want. I like those and I have them. Okay. But we're just working from one progression to the next. Okay. And again, you can use any of the drills that we've shown. Okay. Now he's going right into 3 sets. Okay. These are all, now this right here, I will say this is like towards the end. This is like the advanced part of what we do. Like this is all on him. Okay, I'm not saying anything. I'm sitting there watching, recording, or whatever. But these are all on him. And so we'll start, and every drill will just be 1 set. Okay, and he goes through. Okay, he does 2 sets in every drill. And he comes back around, does 3 sets every drill. Okay, then we come back around and we do the other side, 1 set all the way through, so on and so forth. Okay, so this would be towards the end, right? So, and again, you can do a variety of different drills. I typically have the first 2, okay, like with the sticks or whatever. All right. And then the last 2 are typically some kind of posture maintenance, right? You can see here's the roll on the ground drill we talked about. Okay. And then, another drill at the end. Okay. Here's a clip of Walt doing it. All right. That kid had the smoothest pass that I've ever seen as an 8th grader. He was really good. All I had to do was not screw it up. Makes you look like a real good coach. Okay? And the best part about this is, you can kind of see it right here. Okay? All right, he does this one twice. All right, so he gets up there. He does this one twice. He goes through. All right? Doesn't like it, okay? Does it again, okay? And say, why didn't you like it? I felt this, or I thought blah, 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 okay? So this is a great time for them to get feedback and to give you feedback. And then, so like I changed it up for this circuit, okay? All right, that's just a PVC pipe on the shoulders, again, just for posture maintenance. That's all it is, okay? I put some game clips on there, but I'm probably talk too much. Okay. But anyways, okay. So I'll put my contact info up here. Okay. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. If anybody has any questions, let me know. Thank you guys. What's up?
Okay. 2 questions that kind of go together. Number one, so you talk about knee to crotch, we're the same. But will you ever change that landmark depending on scheme? So for instance, if you're on the slide side, right, setting to you're sliding to a shade and a 5, the guard is uncovered, an attack on those guys. Will you ever change that? Will you ever widen based on scheme or anything?
Yeah, I may have misunderstood your question, but yeah, if I'm an uncovered guard on the slide side, I I don't have a crotch to set to. And so what we teach a lot of times in that and talking through scheme is I'll teach that guy, like the guard in that instance, okay, like you're the scanner, right? You're probably going to be the adjuster because you're uncovered. And so we talk about a drag hand, okay? I talk about playing with your body in one place and your eyes in another place. So for that guard, yeah, he doesn't really have a crotch to set to, so he's going to be a little more vertical in his set, so he can give body presence or a drag hand on that nose. You don't just want to leave the center high and dry. Again, we already said like that guy's got the hardest job on the line, in my opinion. So I'm going to be here. I'm giving a drag hand, a body presence in this A gap, but my eyes, okay, if he's uncovered, it's more than likely some type of even man front, so you got a linebacker probably in B gap. My eyes are in my area that I'm sliding to, and I'm watching, okay? That linebacker drops. Now I'm finding work. If that nose is still present there, that's where my work is, okay? Linebacker drops and there's no longer a physical presence here, probably going to go help the tackle. Does that make sense? Okay, so yeah, if I'm uncovered, I'm not going to set out to that end. But if I'm covered, slide side or man side, like it's need a crotch.
One thing that we always had trouble with, talking about bumping list off, sometimes we just end up on different levels.
Yeah.
And we have a really hard time with that. When we set like relative to a defender, sometimes that's necessary. Like a 3 and a 5. The 5's got any kind of width. 3's different height. We end up on different levels.
Yeah. So again, a lot of that I feel like comes back to film study. Like if you're on the man side and you've got 3 and a 5, right? That's kind of what I mentioned. Like, and it kind of goes back to what you mentioned. Like, yeah, I'm still probably going to be need a crotch, but I'm going to change my stance. I'm going to change the amount of force I apply through the ground. So instead of maybe a short stance, okay, now I'm going to get space. All right, I'm going to get space. We're both now setting more vertical. We're staying on the same level. Now we watch that stuff happen in front of us. So yeah, it's tough, right? That's what the defense wants, is to get you on different levels. All right. But when we see that, especially on the man side, try to cue it up, right? Hey, think, right? TE, okay? Both of you set more vertical so we can try to be on the same plane. Okay?
What was that strike?
It's a piece of equipment from OLP, Offensive Line Performance, that LaCharles Bentley has, and it's just kind of training that strike, all right? And I like it because, right, what do a lot of times our kids want to do? They want to do what? Right, get wild. I want to throw the haymaker. It's like, no, man, we're jabbing. And so it just kind of keeps their hands tight right there to work that strike right there. Now I've got my inside hand tight, where if I get some kind of inside rush, now I can be there. And we'll do that. Like we'll have them take a set, strike here. I'll give them another hit, and then they'll switch. And we'll do that with the sticks. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's not something you have to have, right? I think you can do all this without those things. I just bought those because I liked them. Keeps their hands tight on the strike. Thank you, guys.